I want to take care of my staff, but I also want to take care of my blood, my family. So it's how do you make all things work? The magic formula is you got to be 15, 20%. You're now like to hit 20 is really hard. But with the litigious world that we live in, that's kind of the magic number.
Welcome to another episode of Whisking It All. We're joined today by Mark Mittleman, founder of Entangled Particles. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about, Entangled Particles, about your experience on the culinary side. So to get started, obviously, let's just first of all get it out of the way. What is Entangled Particles for people listening?
So Entangled Particles Hospitality is all-encompassing 360 hospitality consulting firm. We do pretty much anything that you could need, from rebrands to startups to openings to refreshes to I'm not making enough money. How do you do this thing? How do you operate this car? You name it, basically, we do it. We have some team members that come in and out on both sides. But basically, the inspiration was everything is connected in the restaurant business, in hospitality. So, people sometimes think, the front, the back, it's all connected. And entangled particles is a quantum physics reference. It's what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Two particles can be connected over time and space. They still haven't quite figured it out. Faster than the speed of light.
That's a pretty cool reference. Okay, I like that. Entangled Particles, very cool name. We'll definitely get more into that, and I want to definitely plug how people can reach you, what kind of stuff you can do, how you can help, all that good stuff, and we'll get into that. But one thing that's super fun about the Whisking It All podcast is we like to get people's stories of like how they ended up where they are, and we've had people from, chefs, culinary side, bar operators, just pure operators of franchises of hundreds of locations, the tech side, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of people of all walks of life, but it's interesting to see kind of where they started. So let's maybe take it back. I'm curious to know more about your early journey, and we'll kind of get back to here. But what was your entry point into the hospitality industry?
Early to mid 90s, I had hair down to here and a beard like this, and very hippie-ish time. Following the band Phish around the country, doing tours in the mid 90s, and I was hired at a little restaurant in Eastern Long Island, where I'm from, and to met the owner, and he threw me the keys and said, "Come tomorrow morning and scrub the toilets and wash the dishes." So that was my first entry into hospitality. I always loved cooking and stuff with my mom and my grandmother. At that point, I don't really think I had a lot of employment opportunities with my look. It's definitely a different time. The salad lady loved me. Eileen, I remember her name. She loved me. And so she started teaching me how to crack oysters and make salads. And just the vibe in the back of the house, I just sort of fell in love with. Like just the energy, what I call organized chaos of it all. It's just there's such a family. There's also trauma bonding a little bit. There's an institution place called the Elbow Room in Jamesport, New York. From there, I started cooking at this restaurant, a German restaurant, and that was my first hot side job. And the chef there had been cooking for many years, but had just recently, in that like year that I started there, decided to go to culinary school. He was graduating that year. And he was like, "You're really good at this. You should go to school." So that's what got me into culinary school. That ended up being the first restaurant that I ever bought. Was the first restaurant I ever cooked on the hot side.
Oh, shit.
It was called Hans and Gasthaus at the time. Still love a schnitzel to this day. Still still have a fondness for, I can bang out potato pancakes like you wouldn't believe.
Awesome.
I used to make thousands of them.
Wow. I got to ask there, and I want to keep going through the journey, but just quick pause there, because, from working in a restaurant and then buying your first restaurant, I'm sure that was a significant shift. Can you talk a bit about that? Because we have a lot of restaurant listeners. Some are operators and managers, some are owners. So I'd love to hear a bit about your experience and what are some things that maybe you didn't anticipate going from, working to owning.
I was definitely too young, and I, raised money, family, used my own, and it was so many lessons. I mean, if there was a time machine, I would have told myself this is not a good idea. You shouldn't be doing this. You're not ready for this. It was successful, but we opened in May of 2001,
Yeah.
and we got our New York Times review September 4th, 2001.
Oh wow,
And then a week later, it was very good from the New York Times, sitting on my wall still.
that's cool.
A week later, on my birthday, was 9/11.
Oh shit. Yeah, I
So,
didn't even put that together. 2001. Damn. Okay. Yeah.
damn. So, East Long Island, the whole world changed, and it was so many different lessons. The smartest thing that we did was, and if anybody can do this, if you operate a restaurant, if you can own the property, that'll save your ass every time. It gave you some backing. So, just the whole world changed. Everything tanked. It was, just playing survival. Like, how hard are we going to be kicked in the balls this month versus, trying to build a business?
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about marketing. I developed a lot of relationships. East of Long Island has a lot of vineyards. I started doing events at vineyards and just really started to build, started to do promotions and nights and just started to build like a base and a clientele. And it kind of feeds into the journey. So the first, East of Long Island is very seasonal, like the Hamptons.
Okay.
So Memorial Day to Labor Day is your season. East
Got
of Long
it.
Island gets a little bit of a hit in fall. So the first few years I stayed open in the winter, and it was a very similar ball kicking experience, where it was like I was trying to keep my staff, but it was just like tumbleweeds blowing through the street, and you're just doing it's me working three stations, and one server, one bartender, like just bare minimums. So the third year in 2004, we just about the time we hit profitability, we had not paid back the initial, but real estate went up beautifully. I decided I was going to close for the winter. And I had a friend living in Los Angeles who worked for this private club in Westwood. And he was an artist, so he had to have a job. So he was working for this private club. I came out, stayed with him, met his chef, showed him my work. And I was like, I'm going to close for the winter and just move to Los Angeles for the winter and then come back and open in the spring. While I was shutting down the restaurant, it was right after Thanksgiving, someone knocked on the door and said, "You want to sell this?" And I said, "Fuck yes."
Yeah.
So instead of moving for the winter, I've been here ever since.
Oh shit.
And
Okay.
I got a job running the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel, first 5-star, first hotel experience ever. Definitely sell the executive chef on that one. And took a huge pay cut. But it was an amazing experience. I was running like it's an iconic place and space, and
That's so cool.
just really really incredible. And that was my journey to getting out to LA.
Wow. When you sold the business, you sold the business and the property. You just sold the business, everything.
Everything,
And then
everything. At that point, that was the only way to like recoup the
makes
losses
sense. Yeah.
was to sell. In the end, it was like mildly profitable, but the real profit was the experience
Right.
and the learning, and even from consulting. And I've opened a bunch of places myself since then. Even when I consult, sometimes learning what not to do
Yeah.
is like an amazing lesson, and to see people fuck up and to like gain that knowledge,
Yeah.
help them fix it, teaches you things not to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I always joke around like I have a laundry list of things not to do when building a tech company. I learned the hard way, so totally get it. That's awesome. And so then you ended up in LA. Like first question for you is at that time, like what was the most notable difference that you noticed from maybe the restaurant scene in New York to LA?
My first week on the line, it was just one of the. I've only missed 2 Christmases with my family, and it was the week I moved to LA. I moved December 14th, and I was working in the hotel.
Okay.
Hotels 24/7, 365. They were like, "You're a new guy in. You're working Christmas. Missed that one." So, and then COVID. First week working at the hotel, middle of the lunch rush. The Grand Marnier chef said, "I'm taking my break," and I said, "Taking your break?" I go, "I'll give you a break. I'll break your arm. I'll break your neck. I'll break your fucking legs. You're not leaving the fucking line. We're in the rush." And then HR calls me
Oh
and
shit.
says, New York at that time, like labor law was real, like it existed, but no one really gave a shit, and it wasn't like followed the
Right,
same.
right, right, right.
So like we would put you in the dumpster, like you like I need a break, like where you take your break before you take a bowl and you eat at the line
Yeah.
then you get back to work, like so. That was a crazy experience, just experiencing like actual
Yeah.
following of labor
That's
law, and like
hilarious.
a
What
very,
was
very
that call
different
like when
experience.
HR called you? Like, who is this?
Yeah, I mean, they're the ones that hired me, so I knew, it was that was an interesting experience as well. But I was like, oh, it's like, this is not something that we really dealt with where I'm from. Like and if then I started to play the game, like, scheduling their breaks and learn the rules and take it to the edge, break it, and then fix it.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. Okay, so that what was life after that? So you start off there. Sounds like obviously getting some experience and learning maybe some more corporate style lessons that maybe were different when you owned your own place. What did life look like after that?
So I left the hotel and I started helped open a restaurant. On Melrose Place, which definitely holds a 90s reference, and La Cienega, big, big space. It was called Republic, not to be confused with Republique. That's open now. Was there for several years, helped them open a place in the Valley. Then I started doing a little bit of consulting. That was around the time I started consulting. It was before I started Entangled Particles. I
Okay,
was just doing a DBA. And that was like the beginning of sort of putting my feet into the pool, like dipping my toes in the pool for consulting a little bit.
interesting.
Next real gig was I was working with another hotel, first executive committee position in a hotel. That was the Joie de Vivre group, which was an amazing group. It was very employee focused, kind of hard as management, but also an interesting experience. I mean, everything is lessons, everything is
Yep. Yep.
experiences. Then I really sort of after that that hotel, it was right around the crash, 2007,
Oh shit.
2008.
Okay.
And I was like, this is not going to last that long. I'll just, start my own thing. And then it obviously was a huge economic meltdown. Don't take financial advice from me. And, that's when I really started to do a lot more consulting,
Got it.
still before Tangled Particles, but really started to dive into it a little bit and apply all those lessons from all these places that I've opened, plus my own, and like really helping owners create successful businesses. One of the things I did during that time is still going strong, called Leo and Lily in the Valley. That was after that, I helped start a restaurant group in Santa Monica.
Okay.
That was really partnered up with somebody. Started with one, then he was very aggressive. Then another one, then another one. That started as a consult. He had a little diner. I consulted for him, and he was like, "Would you ever want to partner up?" And I said no for a long time until he showed me a space that I was like, "Okay, let's do this." Yeah.
And are you still a partner in that?
No, we split. After that, I opened a place. Again, all these peppered between all these different
Yeah,
experiences,
yeah,
and I always sort of dip the toe back into like taking a
yeah, yeah,
project before. It's almost like a detox because restaurant operation in life is so taxing and stressful. But I found what I really, really love is creation, openings.
yeah.
Those are some of my favorite things. So I can really get something, mold the clay and
Yeah.
create something. So I really enjoy it. I opened a Mexican restaurant. Another partner, we won a bib for Michelin.
Oh shit, nice.
Yeah, it was also bittersweet. The we had to shutter. The building leaked like a sieve, and we shuttered. And the month after we shuttered, we won the award.
Wow.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
crazy.
crazy. Then that was another time to consult again. After that, I worked with a good buddy of mine that I had met through Joie de Vivre, the original chef of Bar Tartine, and I moved to Big Sur for about 6 months, and that was definitely like moving to another planet. An incredible experience to help him build that property out. I remember that phone call well. I just shuttered the restaurant, and he called me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I got time." And he's like, "I need an adult in the room. Can you come to Big Sur?" And I was like, "Never been to Big Sur. Let me come." And I went up there for 2 days, and I was like, "Okay." Went back down, grabbed my dog, went back up, and that was
Awesome.
it was amazing.
That's awesome. And so throughout all these years, right? Obviously, you've had many moments, like you mentioned, many lessons. What were some like defining aha moments that you've had that kind of shaped your approach to, your consulting business?
It's a team sport. Like I said, in the beginning, it's all connected. So if you have a weak link, that's going to be your bottleneck. That's going to be your weakest point. So that could be the dishwasher, that could be the host, that could be ownership, that could be any part of the chain that maybe needs some working on to
Mm.
make it a strong, strong, strong group.
And how would you say, like, again, I always try to get tactical because there's so many restaurant operators listening, and so we're always trying to just share some advice and real world experience. And so, what were some ways you kind of go about, or maybe can give people some advice on how to identify these weak points?
I mean, I think relationships are extremely important when it comes to staff. I think there needs to be separation as well. You need to trust your managers and follow chain of command. I think it's really important. But you can identify things and then go to your managers and have them do it. I think that if you break that chain, you're opening yourself up to some liabilities, and you're also opening yourself up to some possible weakening of the strength of those managers. Numbers don't lie. I think you can really analyze and find things out that way.
Yeah.
You can use AI.
Yep.
Now we have more tools in the toolbox. There's a lot of different tech out there now that can really help you to see things. There is a time of analysis paralysis, the stock
Yeah.
market term, where we can go too far. There is some sort of a magic formula, but we're now in a place where, especially where I live, where labor is extremely high. So you have to figure out how to make this work with less.
Right.
There's unintended consequences. So they might be like, okay, fast food workers are going to make $20 an hour. Okay, let's put a machine outside so we don't have a
Exactly.
worker
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have to figure out how to make things work. And I understand, and I'm not opposed to, obviously, maybe not obviously, for people to make a living wage. It's important, but at the same time, this is as my father say, this is no one's in the for nothing business.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the make money
Yeah.
business. So we're not doing this for charity. We're doing this so we
Exactly.
can earn a living and we can feed our families and take care of our.
Yeah.
I want to take care of my staff, but I also want to take care of my blood and my family.
Yeah.
So it's how do you make all things work?
Yeah.
Imagine the magic formula is you got to be 15-20%.
Yeah.
You're now like to hit 20 is really hard. But with the litigious world that we live in, that's kind of the magic number. And you really need to have that buffer.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, low 20s for labor, mid 20s for food and beverage combined. Like these are hard things to hit.
Right.
This isn't steakhouse numbers.
Right.
Your margins are different. Your costs are
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I'm talking like mom and pop stuff,
Yeah.
but it's hard to do. So you have to figure out how to make these things work. That could be deals with vendors. That could be how am I staggering in staff? How am I analyzing my salaries? How am I, sometimes I go to places, I'm like, why do you have 4 people on salary? You're already behind the 8 ball. Like, who did this?
Yeah.
Like, I would.
Yeah. It makes sense, and the whole kind of minimum wage thing. It makes you think because, like, you're absolutely right. Right? It's you can only pass so much on to consumer. Right? A consumer is only going to spend so much on a hamburger, and maybe it used to be
Yeah.
$8, and now it's 10, and now it's 12. But at a certain point, and people aren't going to spend $30 on a hamburger. I mean, unless a gourmet
Yeah.
burger, but you get the idea. And so, the analogies I've heard said, which makes sense, is like if you have 3 people at McDonald's, the minimum wage goes up. Guess what happens? Now you got 2 people.
You're
so,
right. Exactly.
so
So did you help? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Again, unintended consequences. So
right.
it's hard to. What are the metrics and what are the goals?
Yeah,
So I think full employment is the goal
yeah,
in that scenario. That people making a wage.
yeah,
This is an old question to ask all the time too. Is tip pooling versus them
right.
keeping their
Yeah,
tips.
that's a big
I'm,
one.
I'm doing an opening right now, and that the battle exists. Like when a server says to me, "My tips," I get fucking triggered, like you wouldn't believe. Like I'm like they're not your tips. Like yes, you are customer facing, but you can't do it without the host. You can't do it without the bartender. You can't do it without the busser. You can't do it without the expo. You can't do it without the cooks. Like it is again a team sport. So that sort of me triggers me. At the
Yeah,
same time, the other side of me and the capitalist side is like the weak will be eaten, and the stronger servers should get the stronger sections, and they should be able to make money.
That's interesting. What's your take on that? Because that is a hot topic. Not to go too much into that, but like, where do you typically stay? And I guess it depends on the type of restaurant and whatnot. But from your experience, where do you usually lean towards in terms of your tipping, I guess, strategy? Because it is a good topic.
I'm dealing with it right now, and to be honest, I'm still at a crossroads with it. My instincts are to make it equitable and do pooling. I don't want to lose strong staff because we're doing a pool. I heard one of the team members the other day overheard her say, I don't want other people's money. I want my money. That again, not really the mentality of teamwork that that I'm looking for. But at the same time, there was a team member who's not as strong as her on the floor, who had a bunch of two tops, and she had eights and sixes, and she was pulling different weight.
Yeah,
So it is a tough question. My friend says, we may want everything to be equitable, but human instinct is human instinct.
yeah.
They want theirs. So I honestly, I'm gonna have to let you know because I'm gonna have to close.
Still figure it out.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
have. No, I'm going to have to close it this week. The
yeah.
tips are going to have to be paid out by Friday, so I have to just,
Shit.
I have to just pay, I have to take care of it. There's some great stuff out there for tips down too, technology
Yeah,
that you can use, and again, just always just better, better,
yeah,
better, 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 iteration, iteration,
yeah,
iteration.
yeah,
Same that's the culinary side.
yeah,
Like the culinary side, my background from the kitchen is like it's not done yet, it's not done yet, it's not
yeah,
done yet, and even if it's on the menu, you could still like
yeah.
you're still tweaking and tweaking and tweaking.
And listen, there's always going to be someone complaining. It'll never be perfect, but the idea is to like try to make it as good as possible. I've seen some people do some. Again, it depends on the type of restaurant, this and that. But I have a buddy who had like a pretty good way of doing it. It was basically a tip pool, obviously depending on the role. The percentages were slightly different. So 0.5% versus 1% versus 2%, like
Hmm.
whatever. Then he would also factor in, which I thought was kind of smart for more the front of house. He would factor in like the average check size, so that way at least you're motivated to think about it. Because it is true that if I'm a waiter and I'm upselling or recommending, and this pairs well, and my average check size is higher, like I don't want to be punished for to your point, someone else. So, but again, it's not a science, but it's more of an art, right? There is obviously some math behind it, but you're dealing with real humans with real feelings, and so trying to figure out how to balance it, because the last thing you want as well is staff turnover in an industry that staff turnover is expensive, right?
Extremely expensive. Extremely. It's you only get that one chance to make that first impression. You have but one chance with an opening staff
Right.
to train everybody together and to create that team. And then as you start peppering other people, they're never going to deal. They're never going to have that experience at the beginning with a menu matrix and tasting every single dish. That's never going to
Yeah.
happen for the other staff that
Right.
folds in.
Right.
Never going to happen.
Right. No, it's
It's a
super.
game.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and like I'm curious to see like if we fast forward to, let's say, today, right? Like you obviously had a ton of experience on the culinary side, on the operational side, throughout all your different gigs, from regular mom and pop places to Michelin stars to hotels. You're kind of gaining all this experience, and then now if we fast forward to today with Entangled Particles, you decide to open your own thing. Let's talk a bit about that. I know you were consulting for a while, right? You mentioned 2007, but like what inspired Entangled Particles specifically? And let's talk a bit about that side of it.
So I've had a lot of starts and stops with Entangled Particles. It's always existed
Yeah.
since 2014,
Okay.
and I've always picked up clients here and there, mostly by referral because I've had so much success that people are just like, call Mark.
Right.
So that happens. I've had gigs in between there as well that I've taken on at the same time. Sometimes, the cost of it's just not incentivized to healthcare, especially specifically. And so I feed that through my company. It's a lot less expensive to have somebody else pay for it. So sometimes I pick up some other gigs.
Yes.
I took a role as a culinary director in CPG for more experience. I'd never done anything like that before in my life. I was a plant-based chicken company called Daring.
Yeah.
I learned how to was doing food, never did any of this stuff my entire fucking life. I did food shows. I learned how to make frozen meals for them. I went to the factory in Wisconsin to see how the production was done, of learning all these different things. I love to take and
That's
learn
cool.
and learn and learn. That's the goal every day. So that applied to different things too, even hospitality. My love and my heart is always going back to hospitality. And even during that time, I opened a Greek restaurant when I was with them. I'm opening places.
Wow.
That was actually a refresh. That was it was a concept before that failed. The owner was Greek, and it was always his dream to open a Greek restaurant. And so we were like, okay. So it was 6 weeks. That was the gauntlet.
No, so it's super interesting that you're also in CPG. It's interesting to see like the world. And so like for people listening in, I guess first question that comes to mind is they might need some help. Where do you find you do best? Like what excites you? So for our listeners, we have a lot of restaurant listeners. If they're looking for some help, what type of problems are they facing where like you're the guy they should call?
So I have Italian background. So soup to nuts is what I like to say. That's how we used to eat every meal. You start with the soup, you end with the nuts. So my background is, as you mentioned, is pretty much both sides of the ball at this point. So if you're having issues in the kitchen, or even in startup kitchen design, you need recipe tweaking. You're having a culture issue. You're having a hiring staffing issue. Any of those things. Same thing for the front, starting operational, fixing, hiring. I have a lot of contacts in recruiting that I can connect with. It's a connector, but I can also be, boots on the ground and be there to really see. I love a secret shop. I love to see what I can see. For me, I mean, I see it like the Matrix. I see the code falling from the sky. I can identify, things that maybe you even don't see. But on the profitability side, it's where I really shine to try to get you to tweak out a little bit more. And on the build out side, like I mentioned on the opening, to try to build you a successful Lamborghini, basically. If you want to paint giraffes on the side of it, that's your choice. But I'm going to give you a working, functional business.
And what are some maybe typical things you see people go wrong, right? Like you've been part of so many restaurant openings, you've consulted a lot, you've been on the ground. So, maybe again, I think a lot of people learn from like what not to do. So like what are some things that you see people make mistakes when maybe opening their first restaurant?
Everybody underestimates their cost. Everybody. So whatever you think it is, double it is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that. I've seen, the project that I just am finishing up now was, a quarter of what they estimated, a quarter of what the cost was going to be. So they were definitely way over budget. That's something I think everybody should take a lesson from, and you should make sure you have more than what you need in the bank, and be prepared for delays. That's again extremely common. There are people out there that can help. There's also just sometimes delays. The change of use on a building is a very dangerous thing to play with. That's another recommendation I would try to avoid. An existing space would be much better suited. I have seen many spaces that I was like, that would be a great restaurant, but no way I'm going to deal with that. You're talking, it can be anywhere from 6 to 18 months to get a change of use
Right.
easily.
Yeah. And then permits and stuff. I hear is a nightmare
That's before you
sometimes.
put a nail in the wall. These are rough things. Construction is another thing that I love to handle and manage and do that stuff too. It's doing so many openings. You learn all these little tricks and tricks.
Right.
That's one. I touched on a little while ago. Like, be really conscious of labor and thinking about what the bigger picture looks like. You may be like, I can save a lot of money if I just salary them and it's 50 hours. But if you're top heavy and you have 200K in salaries, you're already putting yourself, now your labor needs to be even lower than what I mentioned before, because you're starting negative.
Right.
So then how are you going to do line level staffing to make sure you're at the levels that you need to take care of your guests? And at the end of the day, that's really the bottom line of everything is guests.
Yeah.
So making sure they're taken care of, they have a great experience, and this becomes, their spot. It used to be the menu drawer growing up. We used to have the menu drawer. We don't have those anymore, but you had that regular spot that everyone has in their rotation, and that's what you need to be.
That makes sense. And just quickly, speaking on profitability, right? I know there's obviously a million and one things that you can do in a restaurant to, increase profitability. At Whisk, we focus a lot on the cost of goods side. So the food and beverage purchases and inventory and wastage and all that. Labor is obviously another big part because that makes your prime cost. But I'm curious from your perspective, like, what are the typical kind of things that you see? I know it depends on the type of place and whatnot, but in general, there's certain kind of wins that you can get out of the way in terms of ways to increase profitability.
Well, your technology is an amazing thing that you can use, and there's other competition out there,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously. Um, but I think that you really need to dive into that and really use the technology that's around you, because we're not in the time anymore where you have to hand it. I
yeah.
started, it was hand tickets before POS, and I would
Right.
call those server in and be like, "What does it say?" Like, we're now in a time where there's everything is so interconnected, and you can connect to the POS, and you can have integration, and you can use all these tools to get live data
Yeah,
and really see. Inventory is extremely important. A lot of people skip inventory. I'm a weekly guy.
I do.
Other
Yeah,
people are monthly. I think weeklies, for sure.
yeah.
Forecast your labor. Use tools for labor. There are now 8 million scheduling apps. A lot of them are integrated. You need to forecast so that if the integration, if you're integrated with the POS, it'll self-populate your forecast for the following week,
Right.
and you can really start to control. So at the end of the day, it really is about like controlling and seeing. When you're getting down to sort of this profitability and costing area, sometimes you could be playing on the edges. You could be talking about linen. You could be talking about a half a point here and a point. It all adds up. So targets are important, and sticking to those targets. Sometimes data changes. You maybe have to be flexible, but you need to see where there's opportunity and then attack. And then see, like, wastage is a great example too. I think a lot of people aren't as conscious of waste and understanding. I mean, this
Yeah.
is a huge cost.
Huge. Yeah, and especially when it's not their money, they don't factor it in because it becomes almost different when it's just food or produce, right? Like to the end user, but like to an owner, you're like, that's cash. That's cash you're throwing in the garbage because you overordered or you're not portioning right
Yeah.
or
Debt inventory is a great example too.
yeah,
So people will order and they'll be like, "Well, I got 10 cases for this because I got one free." Like, that money is now sitting there
yeah,
instead of being cash flow,
right,
and that's no. It's the oldest liquor
yeah,
rep trick in the
yeah,
book
yeah. I
is
see.
like,
Yeah,
I'll give you one case if you buy 10."
yeah.
No thanks. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm good.
yeah. We see that as a common one on the liquor side, and there's very rare times where it could make sense if the discount's there, and if you're already buying 6 cases and it's like two more. Get like there's cases where you get, but I'm with you. I'm with you. A lot of people fall for that trap where it's like it makes no sense. I remember one of the funny moments I remember was in the early days of Whisk. Client had so much blue curacao. I'm like, like, what do you sell with blue curacao? You're like a high end cocktail, but you barely sell this. He's like, yeah, but they gave me a case deal. I'm like, how long has it been here? He's like, yeah, it's been here for like 18 months. I'm like, there you go. Like, you saved $2 a case, and it's sitting on your shelf for like 2 years.
Yes, yeah, that's your money. That's
Yeah,
your money. Obviously there's examples. The
yeah,
volume is there. It's your
of course,
well.
yeah,
There could be things with good examples. But it's just a lot of time. It's like, do the analysis. How
exactly.
much of this am I selling? How much am I selling this week in a week?
Yeah,
How long is it going to take me to sell this product?
exactly,
If the juice isn't worth the squeeze,
exactly,
don't squeeze.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
this doesn't make any sense. And I see it on the food side too. I'll see chefs like, oh, I wanna have like enough. It's like, no, you need to have. So I ordered 3 cases. So now I have, 3 cases of tomatoes in the back that I don't need them so that I don't order cases. I don't order tomatoes for 2 weeks. Like, it doesn't compute. So
right.
you have to be conscious of all those things. I think that's a great example to go when I talk to owners or operators or chefs, general managers, really, like, again, seeing the bigger picture
Yeah,
and how it's all connected.
yeah,
A lot of times they don't see, and I'm talking more of the line level and management side, how it's all connected
right.
and how that affects cash flow and why the owner's getting more gray hair and why it's not really working properly,
Yeah,
and understanding like how that all operates.
yeah,
So, an example I gave before is about tips. I'm working with a company that pushes out the tips into debit. So I found out this past week they were like, "Oh, if we push out tips on Friday, they pay, and then they pull the money on Monday." And I was like, "Perfect." So everyone's getting paid on Friday. You're getting your tips on Friday. So now that gives them a float now to get the tip money, so they don't have to worry about it, because that's going to hit on Monday, all the business from the weekend,
that's
and
cool.
then they don't have to worry about the cash flow. So that's these little
Yeah,
tiny
yeah,
tricks and things you find out. You figure out the moves, like Whisk, like finding out how you can utilize the tools to your advantage, and then see
exactly.
where you can, at the end of the day, make money, make money, make money.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And then, I know we're coming up on time, but I had one more I had to ask you just because a lot of consulting experience, a lot of, back of the house experience too. I mean, I know front of the house as well and construction, but one thing that came to mind, because I'm a little less familiar, but I'm curious, how do you approach, let's say, rebuilding maybe kitchen layouts or back of house workflows? Because you came from that world specifically, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that maybe first time operators don't think of in terms of the operational side of like, how do we make the most of this space and how do we make operational sense, right? The kind of like McDonald's idea. How do you kind of create the most
Yeah,
optimal? So I'd love to
that's what
hear.
I.
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to say. That the movie with Michael Keaton when on McDonald's. I don't know if you saw. I
Yeah.
forgot the
Yeah.
name of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's,
So
I know what you're talking about.
when they
Yeah.
go
I seen it.
when they go to the tennis court and they lay it out. So that's basically what we do. So we're going to pantomime the whole venue. And we're going to say, okay, the guy goes over here, then he goes over here, and then how does it go over there? And then what is this? Every inch of space should be accounted for. Don't tell the health department, but after plan check, I'm adding more shit. And we're going to space it out and really use every inch to make it as operational and feasible as possible. I really don't like staff to move much. The amount of steps makes a difference. One of my lines is seconds turn into minutes turn into hours, and that's all going to like expand out. It's all
Yeah.
connected,
Yeah.
and that's going to affect the guest experience. So if I can just have them basically go like this, like I don't want everything should be on your station, everything should be there. If you need something from the walk-in, you call it out. I need more romaine. The guy gets the romaine, you stay here. The only time you should leave is to use the restroom. So, or if you're on break, this really should be, just it's a dance, and how does everything operate? And really, that's the game. So, designing for efficiency, because that stuff will help the staff. The staff will have a better ergonomic work experience.
Yes.
It's a nice environment to work in.
Yes.
Secondly, it's going to make for efficiencies for your business.
Yes.
Thirdly, it's going to create a better guest experience because hopefully food's going to come out faster.
I love that. I love that. My last question for you is, and an important one, right? All these changes only work if they're implemented. So I'm curious to know, what's your approach to actually getting the buy-in when you're kind of implementing some of these operational changes? Like, how do you go about that?
So it depends on the gig. So if it's a like I'm going into an operational restaurant,
Yeah.
first thing we have to do is build trust. So that's going to take a little bit of time. So that means it's going to be analysis for like 3 to 4 weeks
Yeah.
where I'm just going to work with them. There
Yeah.
may be a little tweaking here and there, but no sudden moves, basically.
Yeah.
We're starting with just building that trust. Like this guy's okay.
Yeah.
He's not a piece of shit. Like he knows what he's talking. He knows what he's talking
Yeah.
about. He's not going to fire everybody.
Yeah.
Like
That's
he's
fair,
gonna,
yeah.
it's not. It's like the two Bobs in Office Space. Like it's not going to be like tell me what you do with it. Tell me about your day. Like it's not really building that. The opening or a refresh where you're starting with a new team or a new concept, it's buy-in from the beginning. You have to get everybody to just sing the same tune and understand. And part of that is ownership too. So they have to understand like this is the way.
Yeah.
It's just 28 years of operational experience from dishwasher to executive,
Yeah.
to director positions. Maybe I know what I'm talking about. Again, I love to learn. I love it when the dishwasher gives me a great idea. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Like, I'm not the end all be all. You should never feel that way. You should always be willing to learn. You should always be willing to listen.
Yeah.
But I think it really is about what the business needs, what the staff needs. I'm
Yeah.
very big on culture.
Yeah.
And to make them successful, that's going to make the business successful.
I love that. And so for people listening in that are intrigued and they want to learn more, maybe work with you, I want to give you a chance to just kind of plug away. So where can they find you? Where can they find Mark? Where can they find more about Entangled Particles? Like, just feel free to plug away, and we'll definitely link it in this episode too.
Entangledparticles.co, .company.co is the website. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and it's, if you want to find me personally, it's Chef Mark is that's all. If you don't, we don't know what happens after is. We don't know what I am yet, but Chef Mark is.
Chef Mark is. I love it.
Yes, it's very zen. It's very zen.
Yeah, he just is. I am, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's yes.
That's
yes.
cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, Mark, honestly, you dropped a lot of knowledge here. I could tell, obviously, you've been in the industry for a while because you know what you're talking about. And I think our listeners will appreciate that. And listen, to our Whisking It All listeners, hopefully this episode number 1 was helpful. Hopefully you're able to gain some knowledge. And if you're looking for help with any of the areas that Mark mentioned, please don't be shy to reach out. That's why we do this. We do this to kind of help people, help other people. So hopefully this really helps everyone listening in. And Mark, thank you for joining the Whisking It All podcast. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, Angelo.
This is great. If you want to learn more about Whisk, head to whisk.ai and book a demo.